This is probably the best episode of Season 3 so far, but it does have issues. However, although I am going to cover all of those issues here, I am going to cover some of the bright sides. Throw a spotlight on some of the creative people who helped bring this episode to a better height than previous episodes. Look, I fully understand that the season isn't to everyone's expectations. It's not up to my expectations. But there are people working really hard on this season, and I want their work to be seen and appreciated by the masses. So in this video, I'm going to cover some of the stuff that they need to work on and spotlight some of the creators that created something incredibly special with this episode. So first off, let's cover the issues. Okay, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The first 6 minutes of this episode aren't great. So the first issue I noticed personally was more censorship. There's one thing not being able to animate something to the same quality as you might want to. However, they cut out a scene here that shows just how far Garo is gone in terms of his sanity. He picks up pieces of monsters and starts eating them in order to, gain more strength to get his energy back. This kind of shows that disconnection when Garo starts to become something other than human. It's just one really important moment that I personally loved about the manga, but that's not present here at all in the anime. Instead, he just runs past the bodies after he cuts them up, and then there is this really long panning shot of the two of them running with silhouettes, which also wasn't great. But that being said, we can see that the Garo walking meme is actually, I think they can put that to rest at this point, because there was a lot of walking and running in this episode, and it looks pretty good. You can really tell that they're running on fumes because Overgrown Rover is very rarely animated in the episode. He has really well drawn art and maybe slight movement to his model in terms of a breeze on his fur or maybe smoke coming out of his mouth. But apart from that, he very rarely actually moves and is animated. Personally, I think the cuts in this episode are better, but they're still not that great. They still are very jarring a lot of the time. When you're being brought from one scene to another and you're seeing a cut of the same character instantly just in a different pose, it really takes you out of it and ruins the pacing of the episode. There also is a lot of cut content. A few off the top of my head would be the Super Mouse fight. There's a lot of stuff cut there. His initial introduction is totally different. It's missing a good few panels, and also this wall's all busted up, but we don't know why in the anime, mainly because in the manga he punches that wall and misses Garo but destroys the wall instead. There's also a lot of panels from this sequence that aren't animated or in the anime at all, including the kind of important one of when Monster Mouse picks up, the horn guy and lobs him, and that's what sends him flying towards Rover after Garo deflects him, obviously. But in the anime, he just dodges it and he goes flying past him into Rover. Also, there's a lot of changes to content, removing certain characters that are seen in the flashback when Garo is talking to Gero. There's good reasons for that. I can't really say exactly why, but let's just say it spoils a reveal later on. And I was always a little confused as to why that was there to begin with, because it made you ask a lot of questions. So basically, the issues are more the same. There is too much censorship, missing content, and some of the art at times was quite lacking when it really mattered. With all that being said, it's time to talk about some of the people that made this episode the best episode in the season so far. So if you're worried about the perspective shots from episode 1, 2, and 3, because there was some bad ones in there, be happy to know that there is a unbelievably interesting perspective shot in this shot, and it is well animated. It looks fucking fire, and it's a pretty big and important one too. It's when Garo is running away from Lord Orochi's tentacles, firing them into all sides of this building as Garo becomes faster and faster, adapting to the situation, becoming stronger. We have Van Oba to thank for this. He was the guy who was stirring up hype on Twitter, as he hinted his involvement earlier in the week, and may or may not have glazed his work in it. What we got was probably one of the best animated sections of the anime so far. So I want to say personally to Oba, this is great. And personally, I'd love to see more from you as the anime continues. I genuinely adored it. We've got 3 angles of Garo running in this section. One where the onslaught first begins, then we cut to a panning shot of the destruction, then we cut back to Garo running and speeding up into a pretty clean transition into him running, taking like a cyclist stance where his body is like parallel to the floor he's running on as he just speeds up, getting faster and faster and faster. And then we get a close-up of him running, and then boom, he's bouncing off all the walls like Sonic the Hedgehog, running along the side of the building, defying gravity with the speed he's running at. It's in every way, it's what I would want from a One Punch Man action fight. So Vanoba, you've earned yourself a new fan. This is his Instagram. Please go support him on there. He also has a Twitter. I think that anything that is negative about Vanoba's cut here is that it's probably mainly down to things like compositing and transition, which realistically aren't his job to fix. That's JC Staff's team, and we know that they struggled with compositing in season 2, so maybe it's an internal error. So anything that's bad about this scene is mainly just down to the lack in time, planning, and investment. So if you're going to blame someone, what's our motto? Blame Bandai Namco. Yeah. We also have a sequence from Shoto Fujita. It's the first clash between Garo and Overgrown Rover. Overgrown Rover doesn't move too much in this transaction, but Garo wails on him like crazy, doing insane impacts, a jump back, and then hitting that classic reaction to the One Punch Man, death. This is an example of where you can really see the budget in the animation. This is good, but there's no impact on Rover. We see Garo interacting with Rover, but Rover doesn't react in any capacity. Sure, in the manga you can argue that he doesn't react either, but that's because we don't get to see the reaction to the impacts. We just see the impacts. See, Rover's leg doesn't interact with Garo in any way, shape, or form. This is a shame. This is a sort of embellishment that we would come to expect from anime to make these changes for stylistic reasons, but there's none of that here. We got to stick to the books because we can't afford to do anything else, which really sucks. Given the right amount of time, I think that they could have done something else here, but they just couldn't. Then we have Kaito Kono, covering a lot of like debris and destruction. First we get this cracking of the hallway, then debris falling from the sky after Rover's onslaught, and then the perfectly cut circles in the stone. Chef's kiss, sir. You did One Punch Man justice with this sequence. We finished that sequence off with 2 panning shots, however, but you know, they're very detailed panning shots at the very least. One of the best shots in the entire episode is the one where Overgrown Rover moves the most. He scales the side of a building, shooting fire blasts down upon Garo as he roams around this cylinder of the Monster Association. It is beautiful. And of course, we have our homebred JC staffer Aoki to thank for that. You, sir, are truly the lifeblood of this series. If you've been watching since episode 1 of this season, then, well, you know who Aoki is, because he's the person responsible for basically every well-animated section that you have seen. He's an immensely talented animator who gets things done to a insanely high quality, and he does so very quickly on, you know, the standards that he's been given. It's no secret that JC Staff took this project on with a low budget, no time, and are just trying to deliver us something that realistically isn't achievable. And that's a fair criticism. Criticism and hate are not the same thing. Someone shitting on something and calling people crap, terrible, and using hurtful language isn't going to help the anime studio do anything. It's just going to make their lives harder and make a worse product. I understand that you're upset, but don't point it at JC Staff. Any concrete information that we have on One Punch Man Season 3 points to one person to be the culprit, and that's Bandai Namco. JC Staff actually refused to animate Season 3 previously, saying that they had too much going on. Bandai ran around, tried to get someone to do it, and obviously were unsuccessful because they went back to JC Staff and struck up a deal. Now, we don't know what that deal was, but we know that JC Staff took this on last minute, and we know that Shinbai Nagai personally felt pushed into the role. These are bad signs for an anime production. They just are. If you want to make insightful change to this anime and actually make a difference where it hurts, do damage to the people who actually caused this issue, then send it upwards. Punch up to Bandai Namco.